I'm so happy to see all of you here. Today, the adult leaders that went to Houston are going to share with you their thoughts, what hit them, the things that stood out to them. So I'll just give a really quick intro, and then I'll do my part. We went to Houston. We left on June 26th. We drove to Coppell, Texas, which is by Dallas, the first night. As most of you know, we did not have air conditioning, so we still had an awesome time. We didn't care. It was hot. Next day, went to Houston, went to the gathering all for 4 days, worshiped with 31,000 other teenagers and adult leaders. I don't want to go too much into detail because everybody has their own thing to say, but then we got back at about 5 in the morning on July 2nd. Is that right? I've completely lost track of all of it. So we're all going to just share a little bit about what touched us. So, Houston, our nightly gathering themes were God's call, God's love, God's grace, God's hope, Jesus. And the overall theme was, this changes everything. Here I go. Okay. I was so nervous. I had every list known to man. I had my backpack packed with 15 pounds of stuff for every what if I could think of. I planned and I planned and I planned, and then I replanned. And I hoped and I hoped and I hoped for God to show himself to my kids. That's what I call all my youth group kids. They're mine. I hoped for no disasters, no illnesses, no arguments, no injuries, and I hoped for God to touch each of the kids in whatever way he saw fit. So I planned and prayed, planned and prayed, planned and prayed. June 26th came, and I remember thinking, this is it. As I loaded the bus, I sat in the front of that bus thinking, this is your trip. You made it. You are the youth director. So then throughout the week, everything just kept moving. There were no breaks. This is supposed to make those of you that went laugh a little bit here. All right. There was a room locked with no key. There was a sleeping photo op. There were missing Pop-Tarts. There was a hot bus. There was a cooler that leaked all night. There was a donation check to remember. There was a food delivery that wasn't supposed to be there but did get there. There was a devotion to lead. I did not get much time alone, and at the time it was okay. I knew that I was going to be on almost 24/7 for 6 days, and I knew that me was going to take a back seat on this trip. Consequently, I didn't get to write like I usually do at events like this. Motivational speakers, ideas for future trips, thoughts to get me through the day, how to deal with teenagers. I just kept telling myself to take it all in and God would take care of the rest. But not writing worried me. How would I ever share with you what I got out of the trip if I didn't have any notes? But I just kept taking it in and counting on God. Even now, this trip seems like a blur to me. I feel like I missed so many moments because I was always on and tending to something else. That bothered me a lot until the very moment I was writing this last night at 11 o'clock. I was so sad for what meaningful moments I had missed. I wondered what crazy memories I wasn't a part of. I felt like I lost out in some way, but God made sure that that is not what happened. Okay, so God's call. He called me to do this youth director thing in an amazing, unlikely, extremely roundabout, timely manner. And no one, not even I, know the lengths that he went to get me at the front of that bus. God's call is sometimes quiet, but it's often unmistakable. And I thank him every time I hear him. God's love. He loved me as his own from day one, just as he loves every single one of his children. And his love allowed me to share my love with all my kids and then watch them share that love all over, often without their even knowing they were doing it. God's grace. My kids heard his grace in the music and speakers every night. They spoke of his grace at devotions every night, my all-time best memory of the trip. They shared his grace with one another over and over, and I don't think they even realize this happened because they're still young, and grace is a tough concept, but he still uses them. God's hope. I look at all my kids and wonder what kind of world they're going to grow old in. I worry a lot, but in Houston there was hope, God's hope. He showed it to me every single night in words that I heard, like justice, love, together, freedom, advocate, unafraid, diversity. My kids heard hope, they sang hope, they shared hope, they felt hope, and they are hope. They are my hope. I missed everything about Houston so much when I got back. I was not at all prepared for the quiet and the letdown and the normal. So I avoided seeking any kind of closure because I didn't have any of my writing to go back to. Now this morning I have looked back at the whole experience because I had to prepare for today. And God came through as he's been known to do. I didn't need notes. I didn't need everything to go perfectly. I didn't need to see and experience every single moment. I didn't miss anything because God took care of it. And Jesus changed everything. Now I'm going to introduce Mark.
Well, good morning. So I was one of the 6 sponsors lucky enough to go along to the ELCAYG gathering. For me, this was my 6th journey to an ELCAYG gathering. When I tell most people that, I get a mixed response, from, that's pretty cool that you're doing that, to, what is wrong with you? But I enjoy the time interacting with our youth, and I'm refreshed by the speakers and the energy of the conference. There's something special about being able to celebrate worship with 30,000 other people. I want to thank you, the congregation, for your support, and the youth for allowing me to walk beside you on this journey. One of the speakers at this year's conference that really got me thinking was Brian Stevenson. He's the founder and executive director of the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. His message was based on Micah 6:8. The verse says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." You see, Mr. Stevenson spends most of his days in jails, working with clients, predominantly with young children that are incarcerated. He told us the story of an 11-year-old that he was recently working with. The boy had killed his mother's boyfriend a few days earlier. This boy was 11 years old and was placed in an adult jail, and he was working with him to get him transferred to an appropriate facility. Mr. Stevenson outlined 4 things for us that we need to do justice. And the first one stuck with me particularly the most. We need to get proximate with those people who are in need. In your workplace, how many of you receive the edict from above, or your upper management, that a new policy or procedure is being implemented? You read through the new policy and procedure and think, this will never work. What were they thinking? The person making that decision was not proximate enough or close enough to the situation to know what they required was not possible. To effect change and to do justice, we must be proximate to the people that need our help. Solutions not created in proximity are created too far away. Many stories in the Bible talk about Jesus and where we could find him. He would not be in the synagogues and the churches. Rather, he would be spending the time with people in need. He was proximate to the needy and could understand their needs. We, as Christians today, need to be proximate to those people in need. The second thing that he said was, speak up. We need to have a church and society that's willing to speak up. Speak up when we see injustice. Speak up when speak up is what we need. We need to be willing to talk about injustices that exist in our world. We can no longer sit back and wait for someone else to take action. His third point was stay hopeful. Hope is the crux of my faith. The hope that the risen Lord has given me for eternal life. Sometimes it's harder to remain hopeful than it is to be faithful. Hope is your superpower. Don't let anyone take it away. Hope is the key to being a change agent in our world. And the fourth thing he talked about was willing to do things that are uncomfortable and inconvenient. Our mind is programmed to do things that are comfortable and to feel good. But if we want to do justice, we need to walk outside of our comfort and convenience zone. We have to make a choice, a conscious effort to do the uncomfortable and the inconvenient things. Every night, we would have devotions. We'd cram all 24 of us into Erica's room, make sure the air conditioner was on because that 24 in a small room. We would talk about the day, and we'd ask one simple question. Where did you see God today? We would go around the room and let each youth and adult tell us, where did you see God today? Many of the answers were obvious, but some were less obvious. You never know where a God moment may happen, or just a simple smile may change a day, or possibly a life for someone. The youth will be here next Sunday leading and sharing our worship. Please feel free to ask them, where did you see God on that Houston trip? As I close, I have a challenge for each one of you. Before you go to sleep each night this week, I want you to ask yourself, where did you see God today? I'd love to hear the stories. There are many negative things happening in our world today, but those negative things are overshadowed by the enormous good that is in our world each and every day. Our society has programmed us to look at the negative and ignore the positive God moments that happen all the time. Where did you see God today? We need to reprogram our eyes to see and appreciate those God-given moments. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for the opportunity to spend this time with you via video. Thank you, Erica, even though I'm not there. She always has a backup plan. Just a shout out to the opportunity to be able to spend this time with this youth of our church. It was really a fulfilling experience for me to see our kids interact and respond to, first of all, just the logistics of getting from point A to point B every day, kind of like a moving caravan. If you blink, you're going to miss it. So as adults, you're kind of always, have that one eye out for who's going to fall off the train. We had a couple hiccups, and we just kept going, and everybody responded and supported those who didn't feel well at times. But just that piece was in itself an experience. We also saw some amazing speakers, and they weren't professional speakers. They were what I would say chosen by their faith through hope and grace, through addiction, abuse, and telling their story. A transgender child of 9 years old telling her story about being baptized in her church after she had that opportunity with her Lutheran family. Just amazing stories. Once again, thanks. I look forward to going the next time. I've been told maybe I need a chaperone because I have too much fun dancing. But we'll see who steps up next time. But Minneapolis, here I come.
Let me tell you, Martha always knew how to put a smile on our face, that's for sure. Well, good morning, y'all. That, Texas accent is just rubbed off on me. I've been thinking, I think it was about 5 years ago, I did a mission trip with First Lutheran to Dallas, and I gave a sermon after, and I started my sermon the same way, and so I feel like I'm getting old like my dad, where I have to repeat my jokes. But anyways. He's making jokes up front now. When Erica told us that we were going to be speaking, she asked the question, which was my favorite question, where did you see God through the kids? And I immediately am brought back to our first night in worship. There, we made it to the floor, which, let me tell you, with 31,000 people all trying to make it to the floor, it's kind of a big deal. So we made it to the floor, and the kids could not have been, kids, they're a couple years younger than me. The youth on the trip could not have been more excited to see them worshiping God and being moved by the speakers and putting their arms around each other and just praising God is something pretty incredible. And while the speakers were going, we had these journals, and on the front, Erica had us write, "This changes everything." And I looked over, and there was almost a whole row of some of the girls with their journals out writing in them, which I think is pretty cool that they took the time they wanted to remember what was going on. So I wanted to share a couple of quotes that I have through the week from my journal that we use during worship. So a couple of them are, who is responsible? We are. Start with loving God and others. The rest will fall into place. It takes courage to stay hopeful. God doesn't give us hardships. He promises to be there. God's love changes everything. Let God lead your life. There's a place for you. This is your home. All are welcome. Because the love of God changes us, it changes everything. God's love can rise from the ashes of our doubt. God's love is never ending. It is your right to reclaim God's love. The rhythm of God's heartbeat is flowing in this room. You matter. You are loved, and there is no limit to God's love. If not me, then who? Your current reality is not your ultimate reality. When we trust in grace, we are unafraid of fear. God uses our grief and anger to move us to action. Christ will change everything. I'm going to share my favorite one last. You were born to make a mark on this world by the love of God. Switching roles from being a youth on the mission trip to being an adult, I was a little nervous. But let me tell you, it was a great opportunity for me. I was able to room with 3 of the high school girls, and they welcomed me like I was one of them. There's a Lutheran store in one of the areas that has T-shirts and bracelets and water bottles. And the 3 girls in my room came up to me and said, let's go to the store and get something that all of us can have. And so a bracelet that I have been wearing almost every day since the mission trip is this one that says peace on it. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to go on this trip, grow in my faith, and see the kids grow in their faith too. So thank you.
So have you ever been on the highway and you're going along and suddenly you get cut off and the person that cuts you off has a bumper sticker that says, "Proud member of Third Lutheran Church"? So we took a busload of kids all down there with shirts that said, "From Blair, Nebraska, 2146 Wright Street, First Lutheran Church." And that was the metaphor that was going through my head. Great, they're going to do something horrible, and everyone's going to look at their shirts and say, show them your shirt, Mark. Home, boom, right there. And that's what I was worried about. But that absolutely did not happen. You would be so proud of these kids. And you're the reason that a lot of them were able to go. I know a lot of you really overpaid for pies. I mean, I like pie. Look at me. But these kids, they were able to go there, and they, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but basically here's the thing. They worked their tails off on service day. They were so courteous to everybody. Even in the 100-degree bus, they were all like, "We're all in this together. Even the driver is hot. We get it." They were all very cool about it. And on their service day, they went to Neff Elementary School, and here is a tweet from the Twitter from Neff Elementary School. They said, "Here's a short list of the things the kids got done at Neff. Cleaned out 2 storage units, moved and organized 2 special ed rooms so we can add another program, moved furniture in and out of the rooms for summer cleaning, paid for the cleaning supplies, and much more. They also prepared 950 homework folders and cut up a ton of bus tags. Neff was truly blessed." That was before lunch on one day. And your kids did that. So, and another reason that I know they all, is you should be proud of them. They're proud of you. Because as we were with other kids, they would say, "Oh, well, we'll never get away with that at our church. We'll never be able to do this." But our kids would say things like, "We should do that in Blair. We should bring that to our people." And that means they trust you. They're proud of you, as you should be proud of them. And that's all I have to say.
I should be walking slower as the grandmother of the group, but when I thought about going, someone said to me, "Well, you're not getting any younger," and I went, "Really?" So I decided to go. What a trip. I thought it would be fun to go to Houston. However, it was so much more than just fun. It opened my views about teenagers and their love for God and Jesus. Every day when we arrived at the stadium, a new focus word was displayed on the big screen. The word that I was drawn to the most was hope. From a grandmother's perspective, I wonder and worry about the future, what it will be like for my grandson Thomas and other children. Will it be safe? Will he see God's love? Will they see God's love? Will he see goodness? After our bus trip, the Houston gathering, and watching over 30,000 kids get fired up about God, I know he's working in the hearts of the youth in our church and in the world. There is hope. The heat of Houston pretty much zapped us every day, but when we got back to the hotel, as Mark said, we finished every night with group devotions. As the week progressed and the conversations during devotions and my own personal hope increased, we leaders saw God at work as our kids shared their stories and feelings more openly. Often in today's mobile society, weekend activities are on our young people's schedules. We may not always see them inside the walls of our church, but God is working through them in this world. Once again, there is hope. We had many tremendous speakers, and I want to share the story of 2 of them. One night, a young lady and her mother took the stage. The 12-year-old girl, whose father is a Lutheran minister, and her mother took center stage. Her mother shared background of her child. Then her daughter, who is transgender, began to talk to over 30,000 people in attendance. And remember, she's just 12. She spoke with honesty, and her words came out clearly. God doesn't make mistakes, and I am a child of God. On her 10th year baptism, her parents, her godparents, her family, and her church gathered to celebrate as she was baptized again with her new name, Rebecca. For me, that sent a message of hope that we are all equal in God's eyes. The church, this church, our church, should be a place for hope and love. One other speaker, a 15-year-old girl, began telling her story. While she was holding her 5-year-old brother, he had a seizure and was diagnosed with a terminal genetic condition that has no cure. Little did she know that several years later, she would be diagnosed with the same disease. She shared how angry she had been with God, that she had shut out everybody, and she cried and cried and cried some more. And then one day she said her heart just opened up. She felt she was called to do something to make this ugly disease and other diseases understood. She created an online support system for people. At the time she spoke to us, she had helped over 500 people in 20 different countries. She wasn't done. She also created a blog and has communicated with people from all over the world. She had decided to become a leader, an advocate, and a preacher about this disease so that people could understand its magnitude. She ended her story with a quote that Annie said, "If not me, then who?" In her last sentence, I saw hope. She's changing how she looks at things and is welcoming others into her life. This is one message I brought back from Houston that I can relate to this place. I truly believe that our church and its members have the opportunity to do the same thing. If not us, then who? We have the ability to open doors to all God's children. We have the ability to welcome change. Now let's face it, change is sometimes difficult. I mean, let's face it, nobody asked me if I wanted to come to 9:15 service instead of 8:15 in the summer. Come on, 5 pews back, right side, first chair. That's been my home for all the kind of Sundays. But you know, I got to tell you, I've changed my mind. I love this place, and I love worshiping with family. And my vote, if the council changes it, is to do a 9:15 service. But, or what about the year that confirmation started on Wednesday night, and I went to the first Lenten service, and I didn't attend the rest of the Lenten services for the rest of the year because I hated the noise of the children, and hate's a pretty strong word. Come on, who was I kidding? I gave up God because I couldn't adapt to change? I fixed that. I also had a friend who didn't like the 10:15 service due to Vince, I'm sorry, the hootenanny music. Well, with hope on my part and adapting to change on my friend's part, the music is now A-OK. And Vince, I hope you realize you do an extraordinary job of blending the traditional with the contemporary music for this service and for anything of our services or events. 10-4, good buddy. So, in the midst of your church, my church, our church, God and hope remain in the center of our lives. Hang on to God's work and hang on to his love. Let your light of hope shine brightly. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, our hearts, for supporting this trip to Houston. You made a difference in the lives of our youth and their leaders. Houston!